Welcome to The Ideas Machine, a podcast about turning ideas into action. I'm Helena Trail, a neurodivergent designer, painter, founder of New Studio, and relentless storyteller. I chat with creative thinkers about how they ideate, iterate, and implement their ideas. This is your space for honest conversations, creative tools, and a reminder that your ideas are worth building. So welcome to this episode where I'm very honoured to be hosting it with, chatting to Mansu, who I met in Bristol at a creative brunch that I host. And that was a really nice introduction. And I think you have an amazing story that I'm really excited to talk about today, about Move, about your tech startup, and lots of things. I won't ruin it or spoil it. Yeah. But firstly, just to say that this podcast is split into 3 sections, all about ideas. So we first talk about ideation, which is where we come up with the ideas, iteration, which is kind of repeating them and messy mistakes and changing your business or what you might be working on, and then implementation, what tips or actionable insights might our guests have. Oh, and before I forget, this is an audio-visual podcast, which means that you can also watch it on YouTube or listen on Spotify. So without further ado, that's what they say on the radio, right? Yep. Mansu, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you first of all for having me. I think this is incredible and it's such a beautiful space too. So my name is Mansu, but as my daughter would say, and many people in my creative practice, you can call me the Mansu. Right, so I'm a creative entrepreneur, a storyteller, a writer, and I will say I have been creating for the past nearly 3 decades now. It's been an interesting journey, and I'm always eager, always excited to share that journey with people. For those who've been on the journey themselves, and of course for anyone who is looking to explore what creativity is. I was saying to myself this morning, I feel like creativity for me it's divided into 2 parts. So there is the inherent ability to create as a creative, natural instincts to do that, or the passion. But then there's also the commercial side of things now. And it's interesting to be going on that very divergent journey. So yeah, always happy to share what that story has been, what the journey has been, how far I've come, where I'm headed, and obviously where I am right now.
Where have you come from then?
Right,
Tell
us. I think the past couple of months is when I've been able to really put into words what the source of creativity or art has been for me, or as I'd say now, creative practice. I am a CSS survivor, which means that I've had a fair share of childhood trauma to deal with. And so it started I think I was about 8 years old when I didn't find the right way to express myself. So I had to tap into alternative forms of expressing myself. It felt like I was thrown into an ocean, and so it was, how am I surviving this? And so I would always write letters, write poetry, write rap songs. I loved to listen to music. I still love to listen to music. And so it was a way of, having the conversation, saying the things that I couldn't say out and putting it on paper. The other interesting bit, which I don't judge people for because I didn't say a lot and I still do, is I created an imaginary world. I have imaginary friends. At the time, I had imaginary boyfriends. So I had an imaginary audience as well, and I always, talk to myself and play with these imaginary people in that world. And I think what it does is it starts to ignite some level of creativity, because it's imagination, right? You're thinking things and you can create these worlds that don't necessarily exist. And then over the years, seeing how this is interesting. We can actually bring one of these worlds to real life. And I would say that that's what creativity has been for me, and that journey is there's an idea that's, ruminating in my head, and there is a possibility of this coming out to life, and then seeing me breathe life into that. So that's what the journey has been like. I have travailed and traversed in many, many ways, starting as a HR practitioner. So I studied sociology in my undergrad. I have no idea why I did that. But yeah, it was learning human interaction and how just we exist as social beings. And then after that, I went to study HR. I did my master's in HR. Again, I can't tell you why I did that, why that happened. It wasn't my choice, but I did. And then, it was 10 years of working in corporate. Not a great fan, but again, that's why I come back to saying that art is seemingly getting to that point for me now as a founder, as an entrepreneur, where you're bringing in that sort of corporate sauce into what you're doing, which is it's very interesting, juggling multiple balls at a time. So yeah, done about a decade plus doing that. HR practitioner, management consulting for small and medium scale businesses and government agencies as well in Nigeria largely, and then in the UK. And then after that, I found myself in the tech world, which has been the most fascinating experience for me. It was excruciating. I don't know how tech founders do it. I don't know why anybody goes into that, but it's
You
incredible.
did.
And here we are. We survived. So that was interesting. I was saying to myself this morning as to how the first time I did anything commercial with art, so with creativity, was when I sort of journeyed into spoken words performance, spoken words poetry. That's the first time in my life that I actually got paid for doing anything art. So before now, for me, art was very personal. Like it's something you do and you keep it to yourself, and you engage with it, you embrace it, but you don't release it. And so the first time I did any form of release for my work was being a spoken word artist. So I did get paid to perform at a few places. And I was like, I'm not sure this is the way I want to go. It was interesting. I enjoyed it. Poetry is always going to be my fave. Poetry is something that really does move people. And then you'd find that even with the stories that I tell, because I do write film, you'd find that I'm very poetic with my storytelling. So I may not come out to 100% say these things as they are, but you'd find those poetic nuances in them. So that's the journey. Right now, after breathing for like a year, I couldn't do anything entrepreneurship anymore after that tech startup experience, which was again one of the most excruciating times of my life. Again, I don't know how anybody survives that, but we did. Here we are. I take like a 12-month break to just, breathe and just do nothing else. But of course, I don't know how not to do anything as a creative. There's always an idea that is there, like, oh no, I've been here for like 5 years, you pushed me back, so I want to come forward now. And so I had that with Move. The love letter started in 2021. I was going through a very depressive state and then hit rock bottom in 2022 with the tech startup. I keep referring to the tech startup as a really tough time. And so I started to write these love letters to myself as a creative. Interestingly, not as an entrepreneur, not as a tech entrepreneur at the time, but more as a creative. Like, there is a reason why you're a creative. Like, you create, you bring life. And so this thing can't knock you down. And so I started to write these love letters to myself. And then at some point, I found the strength to share the love letters on my WhatsApp stories. And I'd always get this feedback like, oh my God, that meant something to me. That did something to me. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I was like, okay, you're welcome. And I over time, I did see people put it up on their own stories and then send to me what somebody said to them. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. So 2024, when I was quiet, we moved to the UK with my husband and my family. My husband got a job here, so the family moved in here. And it was quiet. It kind of felt like COVID at that time for me, which is interesting. The irony was or is that in 2020, I wasn't as calm as I was in 2024. Because 2020, I launched a project and it went crazy because it was COVID. The world had that stillness and people could really absorb art. And I think you would agree with me that COVID did a lot of things for creatives because again, there was that quiet in the world that people could listen to what you were creating. And so many creatives really did boom. I started a story series for kids around that time, and we went on to self-publish, but we went on to sell over 6,000 copies across the world plus, which I packed when I went to do the tech startup. Don't do that. And so 2024 was that stillness for me, that calm, just rest and relax. But as with anybody who has, is like an ideas machine, you would know that there's a genie that's like, no, there's something here, there's more, you're sitting too long for. And so I had these ideas like, okay, let me put the letters together into something. And then I created a little book out of it, a chapbook. And then I just grown into, and it just keeps evolving into many, many different formats and different forms. But because, again, as an ideas machine, it's beyond the Mansu or Mansura. This is where the commercialization then comes in, right? You're in a world where people, yes, would reward you for who you are as an artist. But if you have the vision to, grow something far bigger, far more expansive, there are certain things, there's a design of the world that you have to follow, which has led me to starting a media company, which is called Turtle and Bloom, which is now the home for all of these crazy ideas that I have across media. So whether it's book publishing, theater production, film production, music, name it, it's all under Turtle and Bloom, which is now what is become the home to Move as well.
We have so much to talk about. I just thank
know.
you so much for that introduction. I suppose, I don't know where to start. This is great. I think, my brain is like, poof. So firstly, obviously ideas and Move as an idea. I'd love to touch back on that and what it's doing today. But also you've touched a few times on the vehicle of an idea.
Yep.
You've spoken that you've done a tech startup, which is one vehicle.
Yeah.
Children's books, films, poems, drawing. Do you do drawing? Music?
I can't draw to save my life.
Well, maybe not that. I'll do that bit. But I think so. I did a master's in healthcare design, and what I focused on was how in healthcare you can improve outcomes, clinical outcomes through storytelling.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But the key to that is whatever the story is, it's what's the vehicle of that story to make the most impact. And really interesting to hear you say poetry, because whenever I've painted, I've paired my paintings with poems, which I've kept very private. I don't normally share them. And poetry can be very moving because you might not think to sit down and write something. And so that was my my master's of research basically said that film, animation and kind of written word and case studies were the most powerful within healthcare. But it's also subjective. And I think what's really interesting with what you're doing with Turtle and Bloom as a media company is take the idea, and I think you have hundreds, right? And then decide what output for each one. So for Move, what does Move look like now?
Right, that's interesting. So Move, again, just like with all the other ideas, it takes many shapes. But right now, it's starting as a chapbook, which is the love letters in forms of poems and line art illustration that you can color in. I find that is one of the most grounding things. It's just, you just sit with it and you just color in. It's beautiful illustration. The words are action words. It's 30 action words. And I believe that one of the things, if you're in a depressive state or in a tough time, one of the things you can do for yourself is just try to move. Whatever that movement is. So that movement can take many shapes. It could be dancing, it could be praying, it could be just move. Like that did help me when I was in my trying times. And so I have put together these 30 action words, put them together in a book, really short poems for each of them, and then line art drawing that you can engage with. But I mean, as it evolves, it goes into a workshop as well. I've done a couple of those here in Bristol, just gathering creatives and be like, this is who we are, this is what we have as a group, as a collective, and sharing what that journey has been, and just sitting there and moving the mind, even if it's not the body, but moving the mind, and then dancing and just experiencing the world together as a collective, especially from people who can sort of relate with what you're going through or what you've been through, and just sharing those shared experiences per se. So Move right now, again, is a chapbook. It's got 30 action words, poetry that accompany each of the words, and then line art drawing.
And we normally save this bit to the end, but if someone wants to see it or get in touch, where do they get to move?
Yeah. First of all, you move your way. There's no right way to move. And then the next one is, of course, you can always check me on Instagram, the Mansu, my personal page, or the Move book on Instagram as well.
Nice. Yeah. So I normally say that's the end, but I thought, you've got to know now. Sorry for the slight interlude, but it's raining and we think we can hear the rain, but hopefully you're finding it calming if you can, so we'll carry on. In terms of iteration, so digging into your process, you mentioned tech startup, which you won't mention, I'm joking. Trial and error. I guess what's really good about Turtle and Bloom, like you said, as a media company, is every time you take on each idea, it can take different forms.
Absolutely.
But what are the key challenges, I guess, you've had as an ideas machine?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the first one is having to juggle many balls at the same time. It's, every idea wants to come up. It's like we're all underwater. We want to breathe. So every one of them is trying to come up, and you're trying to say, I can't pick which is best at this time. So yeah, all of you just come to surface, and of course you're going to burn out because you can't do everything at a time.
Yep.
So that was the very first challenge or hurdle that I had to cross. And what I did eventually to be able to solve that was I wrote a list of all the ideas. So I've got like my ideas book, like just pop everything in there and sit. Do nothing with it, just sit with it. It's interesting is one of the action words in move. It's like, yeah, you're moving, but just sit. And so I'm sitting with all these ideas and just doing nothing for like a few weeks. And then what I found was there is that one that just lurks and says, this is my time and this is the right time for it. And you kind of know, again, because I feel like ideas are like little genies that just fly around. And so it was doing that, the one that's constantly lurking in your ears. And it's like, I want to come, this is my time. But also, very importantly, which is where the commercialization side of things comes, is ideas can take forever to come to life. And it's knowing what your goal is. Right. So Turtle and Bloom has a project at the moment. It's a short animation, it's an animation short film. And if anyone has done animation before, it's incredibly time consuming. Right. So I wouldn't spend 10 years of Turtle and Bloom doing just that, trying to push that, when other things also have to happen. And so it is, this is me borrowing from the tech world now. What is the MVP? What's the quickest thing that can go to market? Because again, artists need to survive. Artists need to pay bills. We need to buy equipment. We need to pay for our own time. And so it is, what is the quickest thing that can go to market now? What's the simplest thing that you can try?
And then just so you know, so an MVP is a minimum viable product.
Yes. And what is the thing that you can easily iterate as well, and get that feedback and change and move things around. And so for me, it was because I had done something successful, in quotes, and in my own way with the kids' storybooks. I was self-published and I did thousands of copies. And I've had people chase after me like, oh, we want to order. Like, I've paused it right now, darlings. I will come back to it, but right now, no. We did our last print run in 2024. Yeah. Which was about over 1,000 copies at the time as well. And so it is, for me, it was a confidence to believe that, okay, this was successful in its own way. I can use that success to build something else. And so books are always a go-to for me because I love books. I engage with books as if they were my friends. I absolutely love books. And I love that they're tactile. I can hold them. No shade to those who do audiobooks. They are still books.
We're doing a podcast.
They are books nonetheless. But I like to hold things. I like to feel them. I like to flip through the pages. And so for me, it is lowest hanging fruits, most viable product right now. Limited resources as well. Resources can also go in terms of the time, the money that you have, the efforts that you want to put into that without you burning out. Because with creatives, sometimes you have these huge ideas. And if you start to, I think we come from a place of that humongous thing, right? And that's how we see it's the vision we always start with. But that vision has to be broken down into tiny bits that you can then start to take into tiny piecemeals. It's the piecemeals that sort of overwhelm creatives, which is the irony. It's not the big thing that overwhelms us because we're like, we know we're going to get this. I can see this happening. But it's those tiny steps that you have to take to put everything together. It's spending 3 years of your life doing a feature-length film. And it's like, oh my God, this is exhausting. And so for me, it is pick the most viable product and tally that with the resources that I have right now, which are my time, my effort, and of course money, and then seeing what goes to market quickly. So for me, Move was that thing. It was already done. It's beautifying it with graphics. It's printing it. Not even doing print run beforehand. Is opening up for pre-sales, testing that the market really wants this, and then going out with it. Otherwise, you're gonna burn out.
So yeah, I've spent the last 8 years or so working with founders and coming in as a creative director, brand person, looking at their digital output. And the amount of times, the idea from the founder, they have to fully believe it, understand it, know their market. Yeah. but then they always want to build. I know this is very I'm generalizing a lot, but then you want to build the thing, and it's okay. No, what can you do up front? Can you build a landing page with a super cheap brand and logo? You don't need the 5-10 grand brand. You can have the quick logo typed out and made yourself, and then I feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot as a graphic designer, saying you don't need me, but get to your audience first. And I think that as you say, that's the key. It's how do you then get one idea out, and then how do you constantly iterate?
Absolutely.
And the digital world, as I'm sure you will agree, aids us with that. You can use tools like Canva. We can make our own podcast. We can record on our iPhones. We can, obviously it's time. And then it's commercial value, but it's that balance, isn't it?
I always talk about how technology, as it were, is such an amplifier. And I think it's been a gift to the world as a whole. You do have an idea and you can amplify that. You can take it to market quickly. You can test, you can try out things, and you can easily identify what works and what doesn't work. And I think we should all embrace technology in that way, as to what amplifies our work, not to replace it, because it's creativity, it's art, it's natural, it's divine in a way. But it's
it's the genies.
It is a genius, and they're not going anywhere.
And so in terms of pivoting and iterating, with Move, can we know what's next? Are we allowed to know? Or this is just launched? It's super exciting.
Yeah, it is. Before we even get into that, I always so again, from my approaching my creative practice now as a business, as against being a creative practice alone from many years before now, it is trying to put certain structures in place. And when people hear of structure sometimes as creatives, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, like, oh, what is this structure? What is HR and legal and stuff? But Turtle and Bloom in and of itself is built to be a creative IP studio, which means that we're trying to build in-house things that can stand by themselves for many, many years to come, and to take multiple formats. So IP is intellectual property, is what Marvel has become. So Marvel creates all these wonderful characters that generations can identify with. So Turtle and Bloom is trying to do that. And with that comes a heavy duty to sort out your legal. So legal is very, very key and core to what I'm building. You must have contracts. You must write everything down. Your trademarking, your copywriting. And sometimes these are things that creatives may not know, or they tend to overlook. And you find that because it then tends to start going very admin heavy, you're like, no. And sometimes because you want to set aside or set in place some sort of structure as a creative, and of course that's running the practice as a business, it tends to become very admin heavy, and you find yourself then getting, oh my god, why am I here? This is not what I set out to do, because I'm a creative. I should be creating stuff, not worrying about taxes and legal and things like that. But I think specifically legal sits at the heart of what we do. You're talking contractors, so you're working with multiple people to bring your projects to life, to bring those ideas to life. So from designers to printing, like all sorts of things. Now because I'm creating an IP here, things that should stand by themselves, it's important that you're able to tick the right boxes as best as you can and as much as you can. So legal has been a very interesting bit. Prior to now, it's like, oh yeah, I'm looking for a graphic designer, can you do this for me? Yeah, I can. We exchange contact, we exchange the job, and we get it done. But over time, you're learning, especially from the tech startup world, as well as having my foray into film production. Contracting is very important. You cannot do without contracting, even if it's as simple as signing an NDA. Like you can't, which is a non-disclosure agreement. I've brought this idea to you. You're doing this as a service. We're signing something, and respecting the content of that contract. So, legal is one of the things that I've had to sit with. And I mean that's just a branch of the admin stuff of being a creative as well, and running a creative business as an ideas machine. It is just so many branches, and you find that you're not just creating. At some point, I have found that prior to now, I really wanted to just hold on to those creative ideas by myself. I'm like, I'm writing this, I'm doing this web series, I'm writing everything from start to finish. But you're wearing the hat of a writer, of the showrunner, of the producer, at some point a production manager, you're gonna burn out. Like, it's a lot. So sometimes the release as an artist or as a creative is allowing somebody else take that, being able to delegate rightly, and just freeing yourself off of that. I must do it in my own way, and letting other people just flow. And then, of course, you still own it. It's still your idea. It's still your project. Nobody takes that away from you. But just knowing how to balance that is something that I've had to struggle with and then come to terms with eventually, because you can't do it all on your own, especially if you're building something that goes far beyond what you're doing, what you would have done by yourself. So with Move, for example, over time it started with just me, and it was so overwhelming because I was like, okay, where do I begin? Where am I headed? Love letters, okay, yeah, who cares about love letters? Poetry in a book, and it's not coming from a huge publishing house, a traditional publishing house. So what does that mean? And so it was coming to say the right word for it isn't that it's not a literary book, right? And so I had to get a marketing development specialist, an expert who came in, who done incredible work across Hollywood and of course in England. And they said, oh no, this is such a beautiful product. What you have is a gift book. So it's not a literary book. It's not a book of poetry per se. It's a gift book. It's something that you would pick and give to yourself and give to somebody next to you and to your family and to your friends. And so just being able to reward that, because for me it was, oh, I have a book of poetry. And they're like, yes, but this is exactly what it is. And I know as creatives, when you have an idea, it's so hard for you to let it go, to let somebody else take it and run with it. So you're like, no, that's like my baby. You can't take that baby from me. But I've learned that releasing and trusting that person that you release to, trusting their experience, their expertise, and just like what they bring, trusting that they have the right in your interest at heart and the right interest as well, and they come with good intentions. It does help, especially when things are starting to get heavier and more and busier essentially, and just you find that the idea is growing beyond what you had imagined it to be. So it's very interesting things as creatives, and just going on the journey. But yeah, those are ways that I've sort of overcome certain challenges and not being afraid to change and pause and take a step back and let somebody else lead, in terms of iteration now. Yeah.
It's, in terms of the iteration, it's literally the name of the podcast, right? Which is amazing that you're using it. So I'm honoured, but it's the ideas as the genies and the excitement and the thing that's scary to put out in the world, and to have that, experience and understanding to do it and know that people want it. Yeah. A bit like, your MVP for Move was WhatsApp stories, and then it's grown from there. But then, like you said, it's the other half of the brain, which is the machine, which might include a team. It includes the HR, the legal, and that is, super hard. I'm almost doing, my career is almost flipped on, actually no, maybe similar actually, but having run a design business, which is a service-based business, but learning all that stuff the hard way by making mistakes, coming up with lots of ideas and not knowing how to run the machine, because I've never had a boss. Oh. And then, and then now as an artist, it's like, well, how do you make sure you don't squash that creativity, but commercially sell? It's, you've got to make a living. It's, so it's those two sides, isn't it? And in terms of tools, people or strategies, like what's your go-to? We're running the machine.
Yeah, it's interesting. Number one thing that I do now, so before now as a creative, is like, I've got this idea, I'm doing it. Let's go for it. And what I have found along the way is you haven't planned enough, because there are things that you didn't plan for.
Too excited.
Oh my God. It kicks you in the behind. And so now the first thing I do, which is it's a strategy across every project we're doing with Turtle and Bloom, is what is it? Okay. Where is it headed? And what are those gaps in between? So the gap is who's filling the gaps, what are they filling, when is it due, what does it require, how much time does it take, how much effort, how much resources you need to put into that. And so if we don't have that full picture, that big picture, we're not going on with the project. Unless we're able to answer as many questions as possible, then I'm not doing it. I have 2 boards that I sort of stick up, and one is the big picture board and the light bulb moment, the light bulb board. That's a tongue twister. So the picture, the big picture board is basically all these ideas have come, right? And this is a strategy, this is a plan. These are all the questions. So there's a lot of questions on the big picture board. So we wanted to do move. What is move? Who is move created for? When does it go out? How does it go out? What are the, just all of those questions that help you to get to the vision. So what, and then the where, and then the hows are the in-betweens. And the in-betweens also have, what do you need? Who do you need? I need a graphics designer. I need a marketing expert to come and do this. And all of those in-betweens. So we will never move until we've answered as many questions as possible. Now, with the light bulb moment is where the ideas come. While you're doing move, you've thought of a short animation short film.
Another 100 ideas.
A web series has come to your mind, an art exhibition, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's light bulb, just pop it there. There's a time that the light bulb moves to the big picture board. But as much as you can, just come in, because when ideas come, I don't throw them away. I don't trash any ideas. So just pop it on your light bulb board, and then it would find its way to the big picture. But then at the big picture, let it ruminate. So I've learned, there's a book I was reading very recently, where the term the gentleman used was incubate your own ideas, like sit with them for a long time.
Tech term, right?
Yeah, very tech term. You find that many times as artists, as creatives, when the ideas come, I immediately want to come and tell you. But because you have experience, and because you've also experienced the world in a different way, immediately you're like, yeah, what about this? Have you considered this? Have you considered that? Now, with artists and creatives with ideas, the moment we get that questioning, it sounds like a resistance. It sounds like you're saying it's not good enough. Well, no, that's not what the person has said. I'm only asking questions. But because you haven't sat with the idea for long enough, you don't have the answers. But as against going to respond to those answers and finding the answers to the questions, we tend to just shelf that and be like, oh, it wasn't good enough. That's what I heard the person say. It wasn't good enough, so I'm dropping that. But no, that's not the case. So for me, it's learning to sit with the ideas and then drawing that strategy as to this is what this idea is, this is what the vision is. And that may change over time. The how may change, but I'm clear what that what is, and just putting it down. So writing it as best as I can, putting it into words as best as I can, and then sort of creating like a business plan around it. Again, this is something that I borrowed from running a tech startup. There must be a business plan. What's the plan of taking this to market? Except, your art practice is what you want to just do for your family and friends. You don't have to worry too much about commercializing it. But if there's a need to make some money out of it and make a living out of it, there must be a plan as to how you want to do that. The other thing in terms of tools is I'm very, very heavy on people. So I am so blessed with quite a wide network. Also, if I go deep into my whole of my journey, my trajectory so far, I have met so many pockets of different people who have different resources at their disposal. So it's easy for me to tap into those networks and say, okay, I need this, I need that. So a lot of people find it overwhelming sometimes when you say, oh, I'm running a business, I don't have all the money, neither do I, but who has what you need, and it's being able to put it into words. So when I've done the big picture, I know that I need graphic design. I should be able to name that thing. And I know that I have you to come to for graphic design.
Yeah, me. Cool
me. So
Yeah.
it's sometimes just being able to name what that thing is, and then identifying or attaching that to somebody that that has those skills. And people are, you have this lovely kimono that you didn't buy.
Oh yeah, my kimono, if you're watching,
got
was
paid
gifted to
for
me in exchange for photography when I was younger.
The gift would always bring money to the table, obviously. But for that person, they do have that. They did get the photography done, right? By engaging with someone who was willing at the time to get this, do this exchange for this service. But there are many people who willingly would do that for you. It's just tapping into that network, knowing what that is. So the strategy for me, always, it's such a big thing. I must write everything down. As a storyteller and a writer myself, when the ideas come, I'm penning it down, putting all the questions, listing everything out. Now, I don't necessarily sit with them for, oh my God, too long, there's no ending. Because again, that leads to analysis paralysis, because they're just analyzing, oh, we need to solve this. No, you can't solve all the problems beforehand. Anyone who knows me, I'm so quick to go into market with my ideas. I am so quick.
You're there.
I have thought about it. I've answered 10, 12 questions. I'm good to go. I would figure out the other things along the way. Now, it works for some people, it doesn't work for some. But for me, I've always seen that the best way to get that feedback is to actually go out and test that idea. Not to put all your monies and your life savings in it, obviously, and all your time, but the MVP, the most viable product. What is the smallest thing that you can try, the lowest hanging fruit, and people respond to that? But also, it's tapping into my network. And that network could also be me testing with you and asking you questions like, oh, so I have this idea. I've done this much work around it. What are your thoughts from your experience? From who you also know, I know that you know a gentleman who can make me mugs and do great, things
mugs.
like that. And so there's a lot of resources around us that we don't necessarily tap into as much, which I think is very important for creators and anyone who has like loads of ideas, because you can't do it all by yourself. I said earlier that I am a big advocate of using technology to amplify your work, to make things easier, not to replace creativity, please, never, but to amplify it, to make it easier. I mean, we do have microphones, we do have cameras, these are all things. So whether it's hardware or the software side of tech, they do amplify what you're doing. And I never run away or shy away from, just learning those skills over time. I love Canva so much. This is not a Canva.
I need an affiliate link for Canva, yeah. Just shout out Canva.
Nice. So, it's just, quickly test this out and then, try it and go. Like, Move, all of the initial designs for Move were done on Canva. Like, I still have it today. This was 2021. And that's what I used to take to WhatsApp. It was so nice, very easy to go. Today, I mean, of course, invested money into design itself, but using those tools, knowing that they're available, and I mean, nobody's stopping you from using them and exploring them as best and as far and wide as you can. I find those really useful as well. One other recipe for me as a creative with ideas is I take my rest very importantly. I cannot function on less than 8 hours of sleep. I can't. Like,
I need 10. I'm not joking. Yeah.
Thank you. Like, yeah. I can't function that way. And even 8 is a minimum. Yeah. Like, I can't. My husband doesn't understand that I do 12 hours of sleep. He's like, are you a baby? I'm like, yes.
Well, because if the brain with the ideas is going and all these questions, if there's one thing 100%. From this conversation is all those questions, writing them out, getting them down is so important, because otherwise it's in the brain.
Yep.
So same as you. Straight to bed.
Straight to bed, yep. I don't understand this idea, that goes around over 4 hours of sleep. I'm like, I'm not sure that's how we're supposed to live our lives, but okay, to each his own. But I can't, like, rest is such an important thing for me. And I encourage it all the time as a recipe, as a strategy, as a tool that I use to keep the ideas running and to keep the machine being oiled. It is get as much rest as possible. Sometimes there's rest from the project itself, from the ideas themselves, and just, go for a nice, there's a float thing around Bristol. It's such a beautiful experience. We just go in the water and just lay down there for like an hour. Do that, go to spa, go just relax and take a break off of everything. The more refreshed you feel, the better the ideas come, and then the different forms that it can also take. So those are the key things for me, I would say. I know there's a lot more, but
there's loads. We'll do another one. You'll have to come back.
I'm more than happy to.
Well, thank you so much. I think, sadly, we're going to wrap up there, but you will have to come again.
Fascinated.
How can people follow you? You've mentioned it already at the beginning, but go for it again on Instagram.
Right, on Instagram, you can find me at the Mansu. That's THE_MANSU. And for the Move book, it's at the Move book, THEMOOVBOOK.
Move, love it. Is there any final words you'd like to have before I wrap it up?
I would say that one interesting thing with your ideas, don't let them go to waste. Don't let them die. Continue. If anything, is the conviction in your ideas is what will continue to push you forward. So
thank you so much. Yeah, turn the ideas into action. Yep. So thank you so much, the Mansu, for coming and joining us on the Ideas Machine. I think if you had a podcast, it'd be called the Ideas Planning Machine. And for anybody that would like to follow along, you can find us at theideasmachine.substack.com on Spotify or YouTube. And if you want to share your own ideas, then use the hashtag the Ideas Machine. Thank you to our producer Ruby, and we're off. Bye.